Um, Hi everyone. I'm Aaron. I'm an IP and video games lawyer. I work for a law firm called Lewis Silkin. For those of you who don't know us, we are a top 100 law firm. We have offices across the UK, in Ireland, and a presence in Hong Kong as well. We have a pretty large and, I should say, award-winning video games practice. We advise a range of There's the helicopter, nice. I'll just turn it off and speak in a slight shouty tone instead. Can you hear me at the back okay? Good, okay. So, we do the full range of video games advice, covering all practice areas. We love the industry, we love video games. We advise indies, AAA, and everything in between. If you'd like to catch me in the bar for a drink and ask me anything about IP, legal, or anything else you want to talk about, please do. But today I'm doing a little introduction to IP, which is important for any business that's creating and innovating, but it's certainly a key asset for any video games business. IP is how you protect your investment. So everything you're doing is most likely IP. And IP, knowing how to protect it, knowing how to enforce it, is how you prevent others from misusing what you've created, and how you can make sure that your rights are properly organized, how you can license the game. You might be able to use it to raise funding, or you might want to sell your rights on in time. So I guess what I'm saying is it's never too early to think about it. Super important for any business in this industry. The first thing I wanted to talk about is copyright, which you've probably heard of. It's the most important IP right in the EU and UK for protecting software, by which I mean source code. That is generally in this country, it's generally protected as copyright. It protects all of the original works in your game, so it's a bit wider than code. It also protects any literary, dramatic, musical, artistic works. So basically, things like your script, character likenesses, artwork, pretty much anything creative in your game is likely to be protectable as copyright as long as it's original. What's nice about it is it arises automatically. So if you create something which benefits from copyright or is capable of being protected by copyright, you don't need to file an application to register it. You get that protection automatically. And it lasts a long time. The life of the author plus 70 years is the usual length of protection. So it is a useful thing to have in the bank, and all of you probably have that already if you're creating software. What does it give you? Well, the clue's in the name. It's a copyright. It is the right to copy the work. Anyone who does that without your permission potentially infringes your copyright. And that doesn't need to be the whole of your work. So whether we're talking about a character likeness or some of your source code. And this has been a hot topic recently. You've probably heard of the game Power World. It's been described as Pokemon with guns, and it's set off numerous blog posts and enthusiastic discussions among IP lawyers. But it's a nice illustration of a topic we come across a lot in practice, which is to what extent can you take inspiration from something that's already there, and how do you stay on the right side of the line without infringing IP and whatever it is you're taking inspiration from. I don't have time to get into the power thing now, I'm afraid. But in general terms, copyright can be infringed by taking what's known as a substantial part of the work. So you could take a small part of an image, for example. In size terms, it could be a relatively small part of the image or a relatively short bit of code. But if in legal terms that is a sufficiently important part to be protectable, then you could still potentially infringe the copyright in the original work. And similarly, if you take a small part or you take a big part and you put it in your work and it's only a small part of your work, that doesn't matter. What matters is, can you still find the bit that you've copied? Can you still see it? If you can, then potentially you infringe the copyright. Although copyright protects a lot of things, it doesn't protect everything. There are some limits. Functionality in general is not protected, which is why you see a lot of games that do the same thing in general terms, at a high level in terms of themes and mechanics. That sort of thing you can't protect through copyright. A case to illustrate that, you need a case name because I'm a lawyer. This is a sort of oldie but a goodie. It's a case about pool games. Nova and Mazuma, they both made rival pool games. The case deals a lot of interesting things from a copyright lawyer's perspective, but one of the key points it establishes is that the copyright in source code doesn't protect the mechanics of the game. So you can't stop someone from making another pool game just because you got there first. So that's copyright. The other rights I wanted to talk about with a sort of focus on character likenesses and in-game items are registered rights. So you do have to file applications for these, but compared to the other main registered right, which is patents, which I won't talk about today, they're relatively low cost to obtain, and particularly for designs, relatively straightforward to get. It's important not to just stop at copyright. For your key assets, your key character names, your key character likenesses, anything that you want to build a brand around, you need to think about all of your options to protect them. The images on the right there are obviously the well-known Lara Croft character. On the left is a registered trademark, and on the right is a registered design. So you can see that the company there have covered both bases in terms of registering her appearance. And as well as that, they have trademarks for the name Lara Croft and the name Tomb Raider. The point really is that the point I'm trying to make is that trademarks are about a bit more than just branding. You've probably heard of trademarks in the branding sense, the name of the game, the name of the company, but it's more than that, because a brand and the reputation you build up can be also built around a character, and you might want to use a character likeness for merchandising, things like that. So in terms of protecting the exclusivity of a character's appearance, trademarks and designs, and particularly designs, can be very useful for that. I've also, one other thing to mention, I haven't put it on the slide here because I wanted to try and keep it sort of family friendly, but you can also register animations, and if you look on the trademark register, you'll find that there's an application on there which is currently pending for, it depicts a sort of a bullet going through a soldier's head, which is, there's some footage from the Sniper Elite game, and they're trying to claim that particular mechanic or that particular visual as a trademark. It's currently pending. I couldn't comment on whether I expect it to register or not, but there's some really interesting things on there. Registered designs are often used to protect user interfaces, which is where they're particularly valuable, and that's something which can be difficult to protect in other ways, can be difficult to protect it through copyright, although not impossible, and there was a recent case about that. But they're very flexible, right, because they can cover the whole or part of the appearance of pretty much anything. And they are underused for characters and underused for GUIs, but I'd strongly recommend any games company to think about putting those rights to use in those sorts of situations. So I was just going to talk in a little bit more detail about trademarks and designs. So as I said, trademarks, not just names and logos, but in principle, anything which a customer is capable of recognizing as a brand. So anything that some kind of reputation might attach to, or in principle is capable of attaching to, could be protectable. So if you have distinctive sounds, distinctive moving images in your game, then you might be able to register those as trademarks. What's nice about a trademark is that it can last forever. If it goes 5 years without being used, then there's a risk it might be removed from the register. But in principle, it can last forever, so even longer than what is already quite a long term of copyright protection. They're also relatively cheap to retain. And although you can rely, in principle, you can rely on unregistered trademark rights. If you have a reputation in a brand name, for example, registration is always recommended because it acts as a brilliant piece of evidence that you have rights in the name or rights in whatever it is you've registered. And that can be useful in an online context. You might have come across online marketplaces, and obviously the problem that many have with counterfeit products being sold on an online marketplace, and very often you need to show evidence of your rights to get registered as the brand owner. So having a registration is the most straightforward way of doing that. And just on a related point, something we've been seeing lately in gaming and toys generally is opportunistic registrations. Third parties who make counterfeits and see that a brand isn't registered, they go and register it, and then they get set up as the official seller on the marketplace. They clear the marketplace of the genuine goods so that they can sell counterfeits. So if for nothing else, registering the trademark yourself puts you in a better place to fight back against that sort of activity. If you do file a trademark, you need to select the goods and services that you want to register it for. So obviously you'd want to register for video games. You'd probably look at some merchandise as well. You can't register everything. There are some limits. You can't register something that's descriptive, which is not something that comes up very often for video games, but you wouldn't be able to register shooter for a first-person shooter, for example. And you wouldn't be able to register something that's too similar to something that's gone before, which you'd be more likely to encounter as a potential problem. And we recommend before filing any trademark application, you carry out some sort of what's called a clearance search, which is a check for what's already out there. There's various levels of clearance search you can do, but we generally recommend some sort of check-in to find out any problems sooner rather than later. What does a trademark give you? Well, it gives you the exclusive right to use that trademark for your goods and services. And if anyone uses something similar or identical, then potentially you could sue them for trademark infringement. If what they're using isn't identical, then you're likely going to need to prove confusion. So if you've got two things which aren't identical, you need to show additionally the degree of similarity. They're a great way of protecting character likenesses and other things, in-game items. They give you up to 25 years protection, provided that you renew them. To register a design, you need to have something that's new, meaning it's not been on the market already. Unless you've released it on the market, then you have a 12-month period in which to register it. And they need to have individual character, which basically means they need to be different enough from anything that's gone before. The reason that I'm talking about designs and trademarks is because sort of the tests for registering and the infringement tests are different. So sometimes you might want to think about protecting trademarks and design and protecting a character as a trademark and the design, or you might want one or both or either. And an illustration of that is that in an infringement case here with a design is infringed by the use of a design which is not different enough. It doesn't matter whether someone's confused or not. It doesn't matter whether it was copied or not. All that matters is that it's not different enough from the registration. So it can be worth taking some advice on your kind of protection options, because they each give you a slightly different scope of protection, and there are slightly different criteria for getting the registration. That's all I wanted to talk about. I'm very happy to take any kind of general IP-related questions if anyone has any, or yeah, grab me in the bar later if you like.
AI.
Yes.
That works. How does that ramification fall into trademark protection if it's
there's a case involving Getty Images, which is currently going through courts. One of the issues in that case is the extent to which the trademark, the Getty Images trademark, is infringed by the reproduction of that trademark in images generated by AI. But what I would say, that's a really interesting question. What I would say more generally is the use of generative AI right now does entail some risk. Of course it does, because you're potentially relying on something which is reproducing or just regurgitating stuff from pre-existing works. The best I can say right now is that it is an unresolved legal issue, and actually we'll have clarity in time. But clearly some caution is needed, and the recommendation right now is that any business looking to use it sets its own policy to try and manage those risks.
We've seen a few such properties into the WWE recently.
Oh, yeah.
Really through Mickey Mouse. I think in the next few years, Superman and Batman are coming up next.
Yeah.
What do you think the risks associated with perhaps using one of these might be?
So Mickey Mouse, for example, although that particular Mickey Mouse likeness has entered the public domain, I mean, there's a few potential risks. Firstly, you need to consider whether there might be any jurisdictional variations. Just because it's out of copyright in the US doesn't necessarily mean it's out of copyright everywhere. Something else to think about is that there will be other likenesses, which in that case, the owner of the Mickey Mouse copyright might say, well, it's not similar to that one, but it is similar to this one. Mickey Mouse as a name will still be registered as a trademark, so you would need to be careful not to use the name Mickey Mouse. So you would need to think about all the IP around the thing that is now public domain. Cool. Have we got time for one more?
Do you think you're okay leaving it until...
Yeah, fine. Just grab me afterwards.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.